Hey there, it's Kate Swoboda, also known as Kate Courageous. I'm the creator of YourCourageousLife.com, the director of the Courageous Living Coach certification at TeamCLCC.com, and I'm the author of the book The Courage Habit, which is available at booksellers everywhere and, of course, at Amazon. And as you might have guessed, I'm the host of this podcast, the Your Courageous Life podcast. We're going to talk about going after what you want and living a more courageous, emotionally resilient life. I might drop a couple of F-bombs, so don't listen with your kids in the back seat. And here we go. Well, hello there. As I'm recording this podcast, it happens that the clock has turned over to a new year, and we're actually several weeks into the new year. And I have a little bit of something of a secret to share. So I know that people fall on different continuums when it comes to New Year's resolutions, setting goals, or is it just an intention? Or do you just want a word of the year? And I don't mean just in the pejorative sense. I just mean it as in the simplicity of a word of the year. And I fall on I do really well when I've got a goal, when I've got some kind of a goal that I've set, and then I can work backwards from the goal. But the key for me has got to be not getting attached to the result of the goal. That's the key for everyone, I think, if you're going to be happy with goal setting. Because if you're going to beat yourself up if you don't hit the exact goal that you set, that's a recipe for not feeling so great. But the secret of sorts is that I usually, before a new year turns over, I've got my idea of what I want to be my goals for the year. But then it's like the month of January, really the first 4 weeks after I set any goal is almost like a testing phase. Like, do I really want that goal? Am I just like, let me just make sure here? Because if I'm going to put my all into something, I want a little bit of time before I commit, right? You don't usually decide to marry someone on the first date. So I thought that I would use this podcast to talk about creating your personal courageous year. This podcast, by the way, though, it is not like if you're listening to this in May, you can't make use of what's here. You can start your courageous year at any time, and it is always you being in choice around when you go, I've hit a fork in the road in my life. I want something to be different. Or it's not as dramatic as a fork in the road, but things are feeling kind of meh. And I want to feel more alive, to feel more excited, to feel happier. Those are places and spaces that you very much deserve to step into at any time. What I'll use as we're going through this episode as a guide is the 2019 Courageous Living Planner. Every year I release a new Courageous Living Planner, and I vary it up, change it up just a little bit each year. And 2019 is the year when I happen to be recording this. But like I said, if this podcast episode, if you're listening to it in 2021, there will be a 2021 Courageous Living Planner that you will be able to use as well. A lot of the philosophies behind all of this will be the same. And even if you feel like you are really settled on your goals or your desires for the next 12 months of your life, even if you feel like you're not somebody who's super into setting goals, having a check-in with yourself around where you want to stretch, where you might need rest, where it's time to stop something, where it's time to start something, those are all very helpful things to give to yourself. So I just really want to make sure that you're rooting down into that idea. However you approach this, it can just be considered a check-in. So if you're driving right now, obviously don't try to look at the Courageous Living Planner while you're driving. That's not safe. But if you have a safe environment where you can pull out the Courageous Living Planner, please do. If you don't have the Courageous Living Planner, you can go to yourcourageouslife.com/begin. Join the newsletter. You will get access to the entire Your Courageous Life library, which has the planner linked, and you can download it. It's a PDF. You can print it if you want. It's part of why I do a lot of PDFs instead of digital stuff. I really like printing things and pulling them out. So the first few pages of the Courageous Living Planner, I make a little announcement that the courage habit is like full on out in the world, and a little announcement about how we are updating the Courageous Living program, rolling out those updates really, really soon. And have a little letter at the beginning about all that I hope for you. And then we get to, if you scroll down or move over to page 9, the truth is where we begin. And I think that really rooting into the truth of your life and what has been working and what hasn't, and where you're getting stuck in some of your stories and where it is that you're wanting to grow, what you're yearning for, what you're in this moment struggling with, is a really beautiful place to start. So you own and you acknowledge the truth. If you are solely focused on moving into the future without getting grounded in the present, I think that there's more potential for you to feel dismayed by what's going on in your life. It's like, just take a moment to really be in and be present with the truth of who you are in this moment. Honor it, give it some space. Most of us get really caught up in rushing to dream, and that rush to dream often produces this really heady, high vibe feeling of inspiration, but then the present will come rushing back at some point, and it almost can feel like, wait, hold on, I was in the space of like going towards this dream, what's going on? And then now all of a sudden things feel wonky again. Usually that's because there hasn't been enough time spent in just going, hmm, what season of my life am I in right now? Can I be okay with that? Can I acknowledge the pain of any place where I don't feel powerful or I don't feel like things are working? Can I acknowledge and celebrate myself for the places where actually I'm rocking out and it's good? In the Courageous Living Planner, I walk you through an exercise that is that is a repro of the Wheel of Life exercise by Whitworth, Kimsey House, and Sandel from the Coactive Coaching book. And what you do is first you evaluate your life satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being nope and 10 being rocking it. So if you go to page 10 of the 2019 Courageous Living Planner, you're going to be asked, and if you're doing this in the car, if you're listening to this in the car, just go ahead and think for yourself of what your number would be. And of course, if you have this in front of you right now, you can just write down what your number would be. But here we go. So intimate relationships, this is like romantic relationships. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it was completely and utterly unsatisfying in every way. 5 being neutral, not great, not bad. 10 being I rocked this area of my life. I'm feeling like just it couldn't be any better. For intimate relationships, how satisfied are you with your intimate relationships currently? 1 to 10. And really take a deep breath with wherever you are. There's not a wrong place to be with all of this. And then friends and family. And if you want, you can, of course, separate these out and think about just friends first, a scale of 1 to 10, just family. But currently, how satisfied are you with your relationships with friends and family? 1 to 10. Give it a number. Don't overthink it. The number that comes to you first is probably the right one. And now career. How are you feeling about your work life on a scale of 1 to 10? And how about money? And with money, it's not about I want to be earning more. Like There's very few people who wouldn't say, well, I'd love to be making more money. Um, Rather, the question for check in, scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied or fulfilled are you in relationship to money? So it's more so, how are you feeling about money and finances? Scale of 1 to 10. And now, how about your physical health? Be gentle with yourself. How are you feeling about your physical health right now? And then home or your physical environment. Do you love the home you live in? How's it feeling with clutter? How's it feeling with family chores? You're thinking about the environment. Scale of 1 to 10. 1, it is a disaster in every way. 10, it is the best in every way. 5 is neutral. And now, spiritual and personal development. And I think of spiritual and personal development like to assess this. Do you feel pretty open about working on your stuff? By the way, if you're here listening to this and you're working through the Courageous Living Planner right now and all that, you're probably pretty open. There's probably a gold star here for you. Um, are there any areas of resistance you know you haven't dealt with or explored? Do you give yourself love and appreciation on a regular basis? Are you stretching in the areas that your soul most needs to stretch? And then the last category, fun and recreation. Are you making time for fun? And I say in the Courageous Living Planner, let's go one step further. Are you making more than enough time for fun? There's enough and adequate, and then there's more than enough room in your life for fun. Go ahead and give that a 1 to 10 scale. Okay, so I want to offer you a little bonus that actually isn't in the Courageous Living Planner. And it is this. And it's a tip that I got from reading some interviews that 4 Hour Work Week author Tim Ferriss does with people on his podcast. And I thought it was a great tip. And it basically was, look at the ratings you've given things. I think I learned about this tip in relationship to hiring or like decision making on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no, 10 being a hell yes. How much are you a no or a yes? And you rate it just as you did, as I've just walked you through. But the instruction was, anywhere where you've rated something a 7, you can't rate it a 7 anymore. So in other words, people have a tendency to stay in indecision by rating things in their life a 7, because 75% they'll go, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. But once you say to them, you can't do a 7 anymore, it has to either be a 6 or an 8. You decide. That puts things into clearer focus. So it's like, if you gave your home environment a 7, and I'm saying now, okay, 7 is no longer one of the options. You have to either decide, is it a 6 or is it an 8? That changes the stakes a little bit, right? Because suddenly your home life you're really needing to decide, is it sliding more in the direction of, this is really good, or is it sliding more in the direction of, yeah, this could use some work? So if you have done the actual writing down of your numbers for each of these categories of life, go ahead and take a moment to change any 7s into either 6s or 8s. And in the Courageous Living Planner, the next step is to actually fill out the wheel of life. So there's this pie-shaped looking circle for those of you who don't have the planner in front of you right now. And what you do is you fill it in in accordance with the number you gave yourself. So if you gave yourself a 1 for money, you would only fill in a little tiny tippy point of the pie, kind of close to the center. But if you gave yourself a 10 for money, you would literally fill in the entire slice of pie. If you gave yourself a 5 for money, you would fill in just kind of like half of it. And the idea is that somebody who's living a 10 in every area of their life is going to have this really round, smooth rolling wheel. Someone who is living drastically differently in different areas of their lives is going to have a very bumpy wheel. So then the question, of course, becomes how can we start to get everything a little bit smoother? Expand from 1s to 2s to 5s to 8s to 10s in all these different areas of your life. That's part of it, but it's also how can we make it smoother? So, part 1 of the Courageous Living program is all about let's tell the truth. Where are you? And part 2 is all about planning. So, in the Tell the Truth section, and the questions begin on page 16, there are a number of courageous questions. And I start this section off by saying I agree with what Dr. Brene Brown says, that with personal growth, we can't look at how to, like how to change your life in 5 easy steps, without really looking at what gets in the way. Declaring yourself on this sparkly, glittery adventure without looking at the psychology of why you're stuck wherever you're stuck will not get you where you want to go. So these courageous questions that I ask in the Courageous Living Planner consist of things like, what went amazingly, astonishingly, stupendously well during the past year? What are you most proud of? Brag it up. What are the support systems that are in place? Did you create any new habits? And then we start getting into, if the inner critic really wants to get you, to stop you in its tracks, it would most likely say what? And who's on your list of people who could use a bit of forgiveness? And of course, forgiveness does not mean I have to let them back into my life. I have to say that what they did was okay. Just rather, who's on your list for forgiveness, as in, I'm just letting go of the ick that I feel about this person. Then we get into metabolizing emotion. What were some of the emotions that you have felt during this past year? Joyful, peacefulness. How did fear show up as worry or anxiety, procrastination, doubts, hesitation, second guessing, numbing out, anger, sadness? Fear shows up in so many different ways. We often think that fear is just that elevator dropping sensation that we feel when we're like, oh my God, that's so scary. But procrastination is a form of fear. Forgetfulness that's really chronic is a form of fear. So I'm going to suggest now that you take a moment to consider some of these questions from the Courageous Living Planner. And if you're riding in the car, I would say take a moment just to consider what some of the highs and lows of the past year have been and how those have played out for you. And later you can revisit with more depth the individual and very specific questions that are in the planner. On page 22 of the planner, we get into big dreams. And so I want to take a moment in this podcast episode to ask you, what big dreams came up for you during this past year? What big dreams came up for you during this past year? One of the things that happens sometimes when I ask this question is someone will realize, maybe with a little bit of emotion, I've kind of stopped dreaming. It's become really hard to hope for anything. It's become really hard to hope for anything because if it doesn't happen, that's kind of devastating for me. So in relationship to that, if it feels like you haven't really been dreaming, if you know that you have been dreaming, you're like, oh yeah, Kate, got it. Centered, dream, bullseye, straight ahead, know what it is. Awesome. Hold on for just a second while I let the people who maybe have stepped away from dreaming know that this is as good a time as any to Shift that pattern. Because for sure, it is disappointing when dreams do not come true. But I have to tell you, and I've talked to a lot of people about their lives over the more than a decade that I've been coaching, it is a million times more devastating to not dream at all and look back and go, wow, I wasted a lot of time. And if you aren't quite sure where to start with dreaming, or if you're worried that I feel like I know what my dream is, but I feel like maybe I don't quite have the right one or something, if you want to check that for yourself, just check in. What are you tired of? Like, if you get really honest, what are you tired of? Are you tired of feeling so pinched for time as a parent? Are you tired of the commute each day to a soul-sucking job? Are you tired of the same old fights with your partner? Are you tired of feeling controlled by your doubts and insecurities? Are you feeling tired of not enough like joy, like flavor, aliveness, color in your life? I'm going to pause and just let you sit with that question for a full 30 seconds. So it'll be a long silence for a podcast anyway. Really drop into that question. What are you tired of? And take a deep breath with whatever came up. Honor it. It can be hard when the truth comes up, but it's always worth hearing. I was talking to someone once who was going through a divorce, and at the time that she was going through the divorce, she was going through the divorce because she had found out a bunch of things about her partner that she hadn't realized, and she was really in the pain in a really big way. And she said, "This is the worst thing." And she was open to hearing this. I was not doing like a spiritual bypass. We definitely were spending some time in the pain of it. So she was receptive when I said, no, the worst thing was when you knew something wasn't right, but you didn't know what, and you were just stuck there. That's actually worse than being with the fear, the anxiety, the what do I do of this is a really hard truth that I need to confront in my life. So you've looked at what you're tired of, and now we get to do something that I think is far more fun. It starts on page 26 of the Courageous Living program, and I title it Connecting with Your Most Courageous Self. And on that page, I offer you an opportunity to think about the top 5 experiences that would make the coming year more fun. And I list a couple things like, have you always wanted to visit Barbados, learn a new language, paint with oils, learn to break dance? Do you want to have more sex? Do you want to eat better food? You want to start your wardrobe over from scratch? Like, what are the experiences that would make this coming year more fun? What delights you? And then there's the top 5 personal growth challenges you want to face in 2019. And I think if we take an attitude of curiosity, this can actually be really interesting as well. Like, I want to stop procrastinating. I want to notice the places where I take it personally. Like, I'm really curious about this place where I take things personally when people give me feedback. Instead of, oh my God, yeah, I got to work on that. It can just be like, oh yeah, I'm curious. How about then the top 5 things that need closure? The things that have been nagging at you for way too long. Marie Kondo coming to Netflix for some of you is like a godsend. You're like, Things that need closure, like the clutter. I just need closure on the clutter. I need to let go of the stuff all around me. And then other people are going to go, there's a call that I've known I've needed to make, an amends I've known I've needed to make, and I haven't made it, and I need to make it. And that's going to be closure for me. And this is kind of just getting you fired up, because then there's, what are the top 5 things that would bring you weekly joy? A dance class, making a date with yourself with a cozy blanket and tea on Saturday mornings. Knowing what they are makes them more likely to happen. And then my favorite question of all, when I think about something I want to shift in my life, and this informs goal setting, and if you let this question lead your goal setting, it will change everything. I know a lot of people promise that, but at least in my experience, it's true. Here's the question: what inspires delight? So this is like the questions that, like, wouldn't it be fun if? I wonder what would happen if. Ooh, it would be so neat if we could. So you could look back on the things that inspire delight from these top 5. You might come up with new things that inspire you delight that you haven't listed when you've been going, what would make the year more fun, or personal growth challenges, closure, etc. But you could also look at your list. You've written down these things, the 5, the 5, the 5, the 5, and now what of those things on the list inspire delight? Or if you want to go rogue and just, when you think of that question, what inspires delight? Let me tell you, something that's been on my list, just to give you an example, for a very long time, is like to spend another summer in Italy. And I want to take classes in Italian. I want to bring, my husband, my daughter. I have not been to Italy for years, since way before my daughter was born. And my daughter is going to be 5 this year. So it's been a while. It's been a minute. And the idea of going back for a summer is just like so delicious. So delicious. So think for yourself, what inspires delight? Wouldn't it be fun if? And I'm going to go ahead and be quiet for 15 seconds while you contemplate that question. Okay, so here's where we go from here, and how I would suggest you use the Courageous Living Planner. First of all, if you are on the Your Courageous Life newsletter list, once a month you'll get a prompt related to each month's theme, because each month in the Courageous Living Planner has a theme. Like January is your most courageous self. February is staying motivated. Good thing to come up in February, right? Because that's usually about the time when we kind of start a new year, and then like we know that winter has another, 8 to 12 weeks of chilly, and it's kind of like, oh my God, I feel so unmotivated. I don't want to get out of bed. Tired. When is spring coming? So February is a great month for the theme of staying motivated. And then we get into March, where we're looking at creating conscious joy. So each month, with the Courageous Living, Your Courageous Life e-letter, which is what I call our newsletter, you're going to get a prompt for one of those themes. And what I would also suggest is that you put a little note for yourself to make a date on the first of each month, or right before a month turns, where you can check in with your Courageous Living Planner, because there are some check-in questions like, I'm asking for collaboration and support from, or I'm ditching the inefficiency of blank to support greater fulfillment. So there are these check-in questions that help you to remember, like, oh yeah, I'm doing this not just to hit the goal, but to be more joyful, to have more excitement, to quit playing the game of comparisons, to stop doing some of the habitual stuff that drives me freaking crazy when it just happens over and over and over and over. So that's some food for thought for how you can continue from here. And here's the thought I would like to leave you with. However you lived the past 12 months of your life, has paved the way for what is to come. And even if it's been hard, I still think that that is true. Even if you feel like you've failed, I still think that that is true. And one of the best ways to make peace with any part of your process that didn't feel good or that you worry didn't go the way it should have, air quotes around should, is to decide that that is the attitude you're going to take on. However the chips fell in the last 12 months of my life, it's paving the way for me to arrive right here, right now, deciding what the next 12 months of my life will be. Whatever you're tired of, whatever you messed up, whatever you are beating yourself up over, the greatest point of power is going to be, what did I learn from that? And how do I get into having learned something from that right here, right now, and then make different choices in the future? That's all any of us are doing. No one has a perfect planner for how they live their life. No one has a perfect system for achieving success. And everybody's ideas of success are, of course, different. So I just want to put that in there, that you can choose consciously right here, right now, to make peace with however you have lived the last 12 months of your life. And that will be a powerful growth point for you in how you live the next 12 months of your life. Welcome to your new courageous year. As always, I love interacting with people, seeing people around. I'm on Instagram most of the time these days. I'm Kate Courageous over on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook at Your Courageous Life, facebook.com/Your Courageous Life. If you have been listening for a while, or if anything in today's episode spoke to you, would so appreciate a rating over wherever you get your podcast from, iTunes, Spotify. It's so helpful in helping others to find this podcast and get some help there too. And I feel so honored and so grateful to have an opportunity to do this podcast. And whenever anybody writes a little love note and says, thank you, that helped, or it opens something up, it like truly makes my day. I see you, I'm with you, this is all for you. And I just am so, so grateful that there are so many people in the world who really want to open up to living with more courage, because I think that's how we're going to make the world a better place. Take care of you, and here's to your most courageous self and creating your courageous year.